People, thanks for joining me. My name's Scotty D. And today what I'm going to be doing with this Guild X-150 is fitting a new rosewood archtop bridge and resetting the neck. It might be a YouTube first. The Guild X-150. Stick around. This one has a serial number of 15223 and it was made in Hoboken, New Jersey. Right here you can see why we need to fit the bridge to the top. It doesn't quite have the arch that it needs to fit properly, so we'll take it down to the sanders to get that done. The bridge that was on it when it came in was looked like an import Japanese kind of thing from the 60s. I don't know where I put it, or I'll show you. But anyways, it's gone. And the reason for the neck reset, a lot of people ask why. They watch the whole video and they see me pulling the neck and they go, why would you want to do something like that? It's to get lower string action. Make it playable. This one's completely unplayable. I'm going to take a whole bunch of precautions to make sure that I don't damage the lacquer or delaminate the center seam by applying too much heat for too long. And I'll show you what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub the whole area and clean the lacquer. Then I'll prep it so that it isn't too brittle. The finish on this guitar body is so beautiful. I want to do everything I can to help preserve it and take care of it in the process of doing this very invasive surgery that we're going to be doing. Oh, there's one more thing. The headstock veneer has come delaminated from the peg head itself, so we'll be looking at that. We'll probably do that a little bit later on. So the string action at the 12th fret is 6 millimeters. That's 15/64, guys. That's 3 times higher than it should be. I'm going to get it down to 5/64. You know, that's below 2 millimeters. Okay, this is the cellulose cotton ball on the nitrocellulose lacquer. Final cleaning with naphtha. This really gets it clean just in case we need to do any finish repairs. This will minimize the witness lines and just make it easier for us. Nitrocellulose. It's cellulose from wood fibers or wood pulp or cotton, and it's nitrated. So that's the reason for using the cotton ball to clean the nitrocellulose. It's the most awesome way to clean it. Alright, now that I've got it super duper clean, I'm going to go down to the garage where we're going to pull the neck, but first I'm going to apply lacquer retarder with a paintbrush to this whole joint, this whole area, any area that might get affected by the heat. And that lacquer retarder is going to melt the old lacquer slightly. And that's the reason I cleaned it so well, is I don't want all that old dirt getting melted into the beautiful lacquer. So there's a whole bunch of reasons for this. Just follow me, and if you're doing this at home, hopefully you won't have any problems. There's a good chance you may, so be wary of doing this at home anyways. I would just suggest taking it to a professional that can deal with all the consequences just in case something does go wrong. Okay, again, the reason I'm out here is for ventilation purposes. I'm going to wipe this on, brush it on, and then I'll let it rest for a few hours before pulling the neck. Well, I guess in the meantime we could shape the bridge. I gotta tell you, it really stinks, this retarder. Toxic stuff. Okay, so I roughed it in on that belt sander that you saw. Like I was saying, I roughed it in. I mean, it's almost like I perfected it. All I did was run it on that belt sander, and you know, I could have put sandpaper down here, went back and forth like this for 4 or 5 hours. But my God, if you've got power tools, use them, right? This is pretty close. Pretty darn close, man. And this little piece in between the 2 feet is so thin, it actually allows these two things to kind of form to the top a little bit better. So as long as you got a good radius going foot to foot, you don't need to be an exact radius across the whole 6 inches, because this little piece in the middle allows for a little, you know, a little dippage. It's a good fit. Now I can decide on exactly how much to trim from the heel. Okay, so what we're going to need to do to get this neck off of here is to heat the fretboard extension and separate it right under where the fretboard binding is, right above where this spacer is. And to do that, we'll need to remove these celluloid inlays because they'll be fried. By the time you get enough heat on here to get that moving, or your palette knives in there, those, you don't want them to burn up. So those come out. You'll have to make sure to cut through the heel cap all the way through it. Now mine was completely attached to the binding. It was fused together like one piece. I don't know how they did it, but when I pulled this one, you'll see that it came loose and the heel cap stayed on. But the better choice would be to cut through the heel cap. And as far as getting the steam in there, and I would use steam or maybe dry heat, I would leave the 15th fret in place and just come right in front of it, 10 millimeters on each side, and angle your drill bit slightly towards center, and those will be your 2 holes for your heat. If you do put heat into the 14th fret area, you'll notice there's a giant void, at least there was in our case, as you'll see coming up here. I'll be pulling this pickup out and getting it out of the way, and I've never seen one of these before. This is like a Franz single coil pickup, made in Queens, New York. I'll take back what I said about leaving the 15th fret in place. To pull the inlays, I'll need to heat, and it'll work better if I get the frets out of the way. We'll remove the inlays. If these were mother of pearl, we wouldn't have to pull them, but the celluloid inlays are very heat sensitive. I'll mark the base side of each fret for reinstallation later. We'll have the proper orientation. So 10 millimeters in, shoot straight down but slightly towards center, and you'll find yourself, if you drill the hole right in front of the fret slot, might be a little bit better like I was saying, but you can see here we've got a nice hollow area back there. It's the void behind the dovetail. And you can also see here there's a giant void in the 14th fret area, and that's because they did this ridiculous cutaway on the heel cheeks, which I've never seen before. And I wouldn't recommend putting water in at this point, and this is where I went wrong, is that I was treating this like every other guild I've ever seen, but this is totally different than any guild I've ever done before. What I didn't realize is that the bottom of the heel cap is exposed to this void, and a lot of the water was just sitting there and soaking into the hide glue joint. It did nothing to separate the heel cap from the binding. But yes, just don't use as much water as I did if you're trying to pull one of these. And if you're a customer that would like me to work on one of these, you know, this was my first one, so I made a few mistakes. I'd be glad to try it again, though, now that I know the secrets. I think I would do a lot better job the second time. So, and I think it would take it a little easier and have a little more patience with the heat there on the inlay. The smaller one came out a little nicer than that second one. Kind of chipped that second one. Well, my sealing iron isn't really getting enough heat, so I'm going to try some other methods. The original plan was to get the spacer loose from the body, but that didn't happen. And the heat lamp and the sealing iron didn't do such a good job heating the fretboard enough, so I did end up using my silicone heating strip plugged into the Variac. And I used all the various knives to get in there and get it separated. I even separated the neck from the spacer right here. Chipped off a little paint, but that's alright. Now I'm going to reinsert the heaters into the holes that I drilled and let it sit for 12 minutes. I'm trying to keep the saw curve really small, so I'm using this small saw. And this ABS plastic is so thick and so tough, this just wasn't a big enough saw for the job. What I'll end up doing, you'll see it here, is I noticed that the heel wood is loose from the plastic heel cap anyway, so I'm going to try to pull it without separating the heel cap from the binding. I use a bigger saw later on to get the plastic heel cap off of the binding, and that's probably what I should have done down here. So this is where the neck pulls off, or where the body gets pulled away from the neck. Hot hide glue. Oh wow, they really undercut that one. Look at that. A little piece of the center strip came off. Maybe I can glue that right back in right now. Alright. So I quickly glued it all back together. I stuck that piece back in with hot hide glue, hockey pucks so I don't hurt the lacquer, and a vice grip worked out really good to hold the dovetail together. Here's my hot water, here's my hide glue, and here's the body. The heel cap stayed on, it's attached to the binding. It's like fused together, so I'll need to get that off. I'll also need to get this little chip of the very tip of the dovetail out of there and glue it onto the neck. But the body just has one little ding right there. I see one here. And a little bit there. But this was the part that worried us the most, and that's the part that looks the best. That big long joint right there from the neck to the body. But man, this lacquer, it's like one color coat, no clear coats. It chips off easily. Be wary, guys. So I'm gluing that little tip of the rounded dovetail back on. I'm also going to clean up the glue area with cotton balls saturated with water. I've always used paper towels, but I think his name is Olaf. He's the Australian violin luthier that does YouTube videos. And I saw him using these, and it's much more precise placement when you're soaking an area to remove old glue. There's a little piece of wood down in there that I need to remove. But I think while the dovetail's chilling and the hide glue's curing, I'll work on the headstock veneer. I'll take off the tuners. The old oxidized tuners. I'll be touching up some of this area with some color tone dyes and stains. I'll be using some cherry red and some red mahogany mixed together. Kind of a half to half ratio gets me the right color for this job. Cleaning up the fretboard extension of the bottom of it with saturated paper towels. After 10 minutes, come in with a scraper or a razor blade, and a whole bunch of that hide glue just cleans up nice. The best part about hide glue is that it cleans off without damaging a lot of the surrounding wood fibers. And that's why violin folks use hide glue, is because you got to take them apart and put them back together so many times over the course of hundreds of years that if you used any of these modern glues, that you just have splinters left over by the time you took it apart and put it back together the 5th time. I kind of treat these old vintage guitars the same way, as if they're going to be taken apart again someday. So this is the fret slot cutting saw from StewMac. It's actually from what they call it, the Waverley saw. I removed the guide. That saw was made in Sheffield, England. And the place that makes that saw is still around. You can actually take your saw in there and have them sharpen it. I guess I won't be doing that anytime soon, but I guess buying a new saw would be cheaper than buying a plane ticket. Well, we have separation. The heel cap is free. We'll be able to reuse this one. Now I'm going to have to start on some color touch-ups, and I'll hold the guitar like this on my drum stool on my Total Vice number 7. This is the photo I'll put on my website. If you've never been to my website, go on there and look at the neck reset gallery. We've got over 50 photos of neck resets. I'm gluing the headstock veneer back down with Titebond 3. Titebond 3 with loads of glee. Titebond 3 for you and me. Okay, here we are gluing or reattaching the heel cap, the original heel cap. No need to make a new one. And I did that with bind-all glue. It's not really glue, it's like acetone slurry. and a few drops of gel CA glue to keep it from sliding around. This acetone-based glue wants things to slide. If you just clamp it and walk away, you come back an hour later and it'll be like a millimeter off. So guys, I want to point out to you guys doing this at home that this little ledge is just hand carved into the neck heel, and then you want to come in 9 millimeters from the edge and drill your hole here. You're going to have to drill through this little piece, so it's going to feel pretty solid at first. Then you'll punch through to an opening. Then 10 millimeters from the edge out here, and you might not want to do it in the 15th fret slot. You might want to come in front of the fret and drill the hole. You can always repair that little hole later, but the 15th fret hole doesn't quite hit the pocket. As you can see here, the 15th fret hole doesn't hit the actual pocket. You want to come in front of the fret and get down in this area here. And I drilled 19 millimeters from the edge. You want to come in 10 millimeters. I actually drilled a hole right there first, but I didn't have it angled this way enough, and it felt like it was solid. It felt like it may have been a skinnier dovetail, but I was wrong. I was actually right the first hole. I would have hit the nail on the head if I would have drilled it in front of the fret, the 15th fret, somewhere, heading towards the 14th fret. So don't even pull the frets. Well, you definitely would want to pull the fret here on the 14th fret. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you want to go in front of the 14th too, guys. Jeez. So we'll learn from this one. Hopefully there will be a lot more successful pulls out there. I do this for posterity, not for fame and fortune. I just hope that I can pass the word along and you guys learn something from watching me. Sometimes I screw up, but it's all good in the end, because it's not about me, it's about preserving these old beauties. These gilts. From Hoboken, New Jersey. Love these things. Correction, sorry, I said 9 millimeters here. That's 8 millimeters in from the edge. So 7 or 8 here, 7 or 8 on this side, 14th fret, and then 10 millimeters just in front of the 15th, and you'll be safe. And here's my shellac mixed with those two color tone colors, the cherry red and red mahogany stains. The two of them mixed at a 50-50 ratio kind of thing. 50%, I should say. 1-to-1. Alright, I did the same thing over here on the heel. I dabbed it in, touched it up where that little chip was missing. And now I'm using my French polishing pad to apply clear shellac over top of the old lacquer. You can shellac over lacquer as long as you scuff it up, with a... I like using that 3M maroon. It's kind of like doing a 400 grit. Give it a little tooth. And we're going to clean out this truss rod nut adjustment area. It still had all the compound from the factory when it was built. Here she is after 2 days of French polishing. Doesn't she look nice? Oh, she looks so nice. Very nice indeed. Okay, this is the 4th day. This is the day where I do the polishing, try to smooth things over. And today I'm just using mineral oil and alcohol. There's a little bit of residual shellac left on the pad. And so the first and second day actually, I used standard shellac with mineral oil. And then the third day I used shellac mixed with sanderac and mastic gum and walnut oil, which is a hardening or whatever oil. It's kind of like linseed oil. It doesn't just wipe off later, it hardens overnight. And so here we are on the 4th day where we just kind of smooth out those little brush strokes, so to speak. And I said brush strokes, but I meant wiping strokes. This is the polishing part of it. It's the last thing we do before we set it aside for a few days. And then when I get back to it in a few days, it'll be fully hardened, and I'll do a little polishing, a little buffing and a little rub out with some compounds, and we'll be ready to reattach the neck. Now I'll get the hot hide glue going. We're gonna make a shim for the fretboard extension. First I clean off the rosewood with acetone. I apply the hot hide glue. I place my shim on top with a MDF caul wrapped in cling wrap, and I apply 4 bar clamps and let it sit overnight. Okay, I'm ready to put the neck back on the body, and the one thing before I put it back on, I'd like to discuss this extreme cutout that they did at the factory. You know, we're all pretty much doomed. If we're laying the guitar this way and we're putting water in, it's all going to pool up here and delaminate like it did. But I would say my idea for it is to cut through the binding heel cap area with a saw, and then try to hold the guitar in an upright position while you just add heat through the 15th fret. It's the only thing I can come up with. Maybe a little bit of water in the horizontal position, but try to dry heat, because it's really not stuck that well around the edges. Maybe a little, but there's not that much area there. So good luck. I'm going to put this baby back on there. I heat up both sides of the joint with a hair dryer on high, 10 or 15 seconds per side. And I apply the hot hide glue with a brush, liberal amount. I do the female and the male side, and then I put them together. I don't put any glue on the body or on the shoulders of the heel. I might brush in a little lacquer around the edges when we're finished. I use these radiused cauls. Watch the squeeze out come out. The hot hide glue squeezes out here. Watch that. There you go. It's good to have a little squeeze out. I clean it off with some Q-tips, some moistened Q-tips, some hot water. Cleans up okay. And the thing I really love about hide glue is you come back to the joint, come back to take the clamps off 4 or 5 hours later, and they feel loose. I know I tightened them, but the joint shrinks as it cures in it, and the water from the hide glue absorbs into the surrounding wood. It pulls the two parts together and it makes the clamps loose. I just love that about hide glue. Now I'm going to put the strings on, even though I don't have the frets in yet. I just want to test the area. I need to put little string notches in the saddle so that the strings have the proper spacing. I also need to fine-tune the bottom of the bridge foot so that it matches the arch exactly. And then I'll reinstall the celluloid fretboard inlays. I'll use Tight Bond Original for that. I'll put a little extra on the inlay itself. And then, since I'm not in a rush, I'll apply some clamps and let them set overnight. Let's do the other inlay while we're at it. Okay, there's both inlays, 4 clamps. Let it sit overnight, but I'm gonna do something to the pickup. I tested it, and one of the bar magnets wasn't reading a very high magnetism on my Gauss meter, so I recharged it with those 2 high-powered magnets. This is the Gauss meter. I'll run it down one side so you can see the reading of that bar magnet. That was the good one. The other one was only reading like 0.6, 0.7. After running it through those magnets, I'm getting at least it's above 1 now, for the most part. A little better anyways. The pull pieces read about 0.2. Alright, next day I'll peel the wax paper off the inlays. I'll clean up the glue squeeze out with a little warm water on Q-tip. Then I'll try to pick out any of the Titebond glue from the little gaps on the edges. It looks like snot to me. I don't like the look of Titebond glue. I'd rather fill in the voids with this Glue Boost Master Glue. This is the Master Glue Thin, and I like to apply it with wax paper. It's a very accurate way to apply sienna acrylic glue to a spot. I just put a little drop on a piece of wax paper and then transfer the glue over to the project with a smaller, pointier piece of wax paper. I added a little wood dust, that's what that was. It gives you a nice finished look. And then I go over, I sand it with 220, 320, and 3M maroon. Howard's Weed and Feed. Then I put in oil. A little acetone. Now it's time to reinstall the frets. For this, I use old brown glue, OBG. HGR likes OBG. We use it with glee. I think it's a urea. I think it's a urea glue. Okay guys, I'm going to go around all the edges of the joint and apply a little bit of lacquer with a brush over the next couple days. But for now, let's give her a listen. Sound this pickup, huh? Anyways guys, I appreciate you. I hope you try this. I hope you guys are successful if you ever do a neck reset on one of these. I hope you're a good finisher, because I had to refinish the heel, you know. We learn from my mistakes. Do as I say, not as I do. Have a good weekend. I'll catch you guys later. See ya.